Meeting you was like listening to a song for the first time and knowing it would be my favorite. Osamu leaned against the wall and sighed, staring into the alleys lit by streetlights and rummaging for his lighter in his pockets. He moved it to his cigarette, tried to light it but no flame appeared. Damn it. Osamu tried again and again, but his lighter just didn't work. He took his cigarette out of his mouth, clicked his tongue and leaned his head against the wall while staring at the sky. Rin couldn't be here, could he? May I help you out? Osamu winced, his eyes widening as he stared into the fox-like eyes of who was probably still his favorite person. Sooner. He put the cigarette back in his mouth and leaned forward to Rin, who held a lighter up in his hands, ready to light his cigarette. Osamu frowned as he took the first drag, then looked at Rin and watched him as he too lit a cigarette and leaned against the wall beside him. Your concert was good. Surprised to see you here. Oh yeah? Osamu's gaze snapped over to Suna, who was still looking ahead and smoking unconcernedly. The gray-haired twin frowned and then looked forward again himself, shaking his head and looking slightly irritated. Haven't heard from you in a while, so yeah. Of course I was. Been busy. Oh, I was, too. Funny how I still manage to text the people I care about. Now Suna's gaze snapped to Osamu. You are important to me. Osamu snorted. Sure. Samu. Osamu exhaled the smoke and then tilted his head that was leaning against the wall to the side, looked at Rin out of the corner of his eye, and met a determined look from Suna. I was busy writing a song for you. So was I. Suna took a deep drag from his cigarette, tossed it aside as he exhaled, and walked towards Osamu. He stood in front of him, looked deep into his eyes and gripped his chin. He tilted his head up so that Samu had to look him in the eyes. I was listening to your song. He looked down at Osamu's hand holding his cigarette, flailed it out of his fingers, and leaned down slightly towards him, whispering against his lips. Will you listen to mine too? Osamu's heart was beating fast. His cheeks were drenched in a deep red. He couldn't take his eyes off Rin. Couldn't take his eyes off Suna's lips that were so dangerously close to his own. I don't see why I should. Suna leaned back a bit, taking a deep drag of Osamu's cigarette before tossing it away too and then leaning forward towards him again until their lips connected, and Osamu returned the kiss without hesitation. He sent the smoke into Osamu's mouth as their tongues caressed each other. Osamu's heart beat faster and faster, heat gathering in his gut. This was something he had longed for, needed for so long. Suna ran a hand through his hair, pressing himself closer and closer to him while Osamu grabbed his waist and pulled him closer too. They were desperate for each other, and yet Osamu didn't know if this was right. As they broke away from each other again, it left them panting. Suna nudged his nose against Osamu's, ready to sink into that kiss over and over again, but he knew that right now wasn't the time. Suna whispered against his lips. Saturday. Next week. 𝒖𝒔𝒄 is going to give your brother tickets to our concert. If that convinced you even the slightest bit, Samu, then come. Please. Suna stared into his eyes for a moment longer before pulling away from him again and disappearing into the bar without turning around. He left Osamu gasping for breath, befuddled by the kiss and absolutely in a trance. He wanted more, Osamu was sure of that. And yet, was this really such a good idea? It was a good idea. Once the concert was over, 𝒖𝒂 dragged the twins with him to the backstage area and waited for the band members to pick them up. They were chatting, having incredibly fun, and all three heads snapped up at the same time as four impossibly attractive men walked up to them. 𝒖𝒂 and Atsumu beamed, while Osamu only let a faint smile slip across his lips. Kyumi was the first to join them. He briefly apologized to 𝒖𝒂 and Osamu, then immediately grabbed Atsumu's hand and pulled him along with him. Atsumu turned around in shock for just a moment, getting two thumbs up from 𝒖𝒂 and a big grin from his brother. Atsumu's face was completely flushed. He just let 𝒖𝒂 pull him along until they were out of sight. It wasn't long before Suna was with them as well. He snuck up behind Osamu and wrapped his arms around his waist from behind, placing a kiss behind his ear and then whispering to him. I was expecting you, Samu. Osamu chuckled lightly, leaning back towards Suna. Your concert was good. Suna smiled, letting his breath slide over Osamu's neck. You liked it? A nibble on his earlobe and Osamu blushed completely. He pressed his lips together and hummed. Yeah. What if there's some more I can offer to you? Osamu turned his head back and met the sly grin he had once fallen in love with. I can't wait to find out. It didn't take 5 minutes for the two of them to be in Suna's room. Not another 5 minutes until clothes were being thrown around while they couldn't keep their hands off each other in a heated kissing session. They needed each other so much, both craved each other so much, that anything that followed that night was the only right thing to do. Midnight had long passed and Suna snuggled against Osamu's exposed torso. They were lying arm in arm on the couch, a thin blanket covering their bodies. Suna let his fingertips glide over Osamu's chest, tracing his every move, before looking up at him and meeting the wide eyes of his one true love. I'm glad you came, Samu. I'm glad you convinced me, Rin. They smiled at each other, Osamu giving him a quick kiss on the forehead. I'm sorry we've been so blind. Let's forget about it, okay? Suna nodded, kissing Osamu's bare chest as the gray-haired man ran his hand through his hair. It was 𝒖𝒔𝒄 who blew your minds, right? Suna snorted. I think he started bugging us a week after this whole thing happened. Suna let his fingertips slide over Samu's skin again, following each of his own movements. He made us realize that something was wrong. If you really just wanted to be famous, you would have done something long ago, but you didn't. Because we never wanted to. I know, Samu. Suna looked up at him, meeting his skeptical gaze. I know. He assured him, and Osamu knew that Suna was serious. Haikyuu is my best friend. I didn't want him to go through the same shit he had gone through with Kagami again. He was devastated, really. But Atsumu is nothing like Kagami. Suna straightened up, now laying on top of Osamu and embracing his face. He leaned down to him and gave him a gentle kiss before continuing. And you're so special to me, I shouldn't have just pushed you away from me like that. It was stupid, I was stupid. You are everything to me, Samu. I would have every reason not to forgive you too easily, Rin. I know. I'm sorry, Samu. And still I'm asking you, because damn. Suna smiled against Osamu's lips. You don't know how fucking crazy I am about you. What can I do to make it up to you? Osamu let his hand slide down Suna's back before wrapping his arms around his body and squeezing him lightly, one hand moving to his butt. Osamu smiled, nibbling Rin's lower lip and murmuring, "You're lucky you're so damn cute." And Suna grinned before sinking into Osamu's kiss, which definitely couldn't have been any more passionate. I love you, Samu. I love you too, Rin. The door flung open. Atsumu stumbled backwards into SakuAtsu's backstage room as the curly-haired lead singer urged him towards the couch while kissing him. Their lips were linked over and over again, disengaging only briefly to catch their breath, only to reunite a split second later. SakuAtsu pulled off Atsumu's jacket and kicked the door shut with his heel in the movement, while Atsumu's hand slid to the hem of SakuAtsu's t-shirt and helped him undress. It caused them to break their ice, only to fall deeper into a full heated makeout session seconds later. Atsumu's hand slid over SakuAtsu's bare torso back into his hair, where they had a firm grip on the curls, pulling him even closer. Don't ever let go of me again, Omi. When they reached the couch, Atsumu was about to trip and fall, but SakuAtsu switched positions in one smooth motion, so that he was now falling on the couch and Atsumu dropped into his lap on top of him. They laughed into the kiss, forgetting everything around them. All that mattered was that they had each other. That they would never let each other go again. SakuAtsu embraced Atsumu's face and caressed his slightly flushed cheeks with his thumbs. He looked into the honey-colored eyes and licked his lips. Atsumu was insanely beautiful. He brushed his blonde hair aside and lost himself in his gaze, just as Atsumu lost himself in SakuAtsu's dark eyes as he did over and over again. He bit his lips, trying to suppress a smile, but it wasn't possible. SakuAtsu would always make him feel good, would always make his heart beat faster. Do you know how beautiful you are, Achu? Atsumu blushed. He reached for Kayumi's hand and slowly took it to his mouth. He closed his eyes and kissed his palm before bringing it back to his cheek. Fuck. I'm just so sorry. Atsumu frowned and shook his head. He leaned down to SakuAtsu, kissing his lips tenderly before looking him in the eyes again. All that matters is right now, Omi. I won't let you go anymore. Hold me tight forever. I will. whispered 𝒂𝒂𝒄 against his lips before sealing his promise with another passionate kiss. I love you, 𝒖�𝒄. I love you so badly that every second without you hurts so damn much. Everything feels wrong when you're not with me. Everything only makes sense when you're here. 𝒂𝒂𝒄 stroked a strand of hair out of his face again, eyeing Atsumu, being mesmerized by him. I love you so fucking much. I don't know what I would have done without you. 𝒖�𝒄, you light up my heart. You are everything I want. I'm so sorry that I was so stupid, that I was so blind, that I... Atsumu interrupted him, kissing him to silence. 𝒂𝒂𝒄 had no chance to escape him, and he didn't want to. The kiss was so passionate, every trace of emotion was wrapped up in it. Say it again. 𝒂𝒂𝒄 stared into his eyes, slightly confused. What? That you love me? Say it again. 𝒂𝒂𝒄 let a soft smile slide across his lips as he gazed into the half-lidded eyes. I love you. Followed by another passionate kiss. Atsumu was breathless. Again. 𝒂𝒂𝒄 whispered against Atsumu's soft lips. I love you, 𝒖�𝒄. Another kiss. Again. 𝒂𝒂𝒄 giggled into their kiss and gripped Atsumu's waist, pulling him closer to throw him onto the couch, making him laugh as well. 𝒂𝒂𝒄 was on top of him by now, straddling him and leaning in towards his lips. I love you, 𝒖�𝒄. Only you. Forever. And Atsumu smiled. I love you too, Omi. Atsumu rested in 𝒂𝒂𝒄's arms, a thin blanket covering their lower bodies. He leaned his head against the curly-haired man's chest, angling their arms so he could watch his and 𝒂𝒂𝒄's hands intertwine. He could have sworn he could feel Kayumi's powerful heartbeat. 𝒂𝒂𝒄 gave Atsumu a gentle kiss on the top of his head before leaning back a bit himself. Atsumu frowned. What are you thinking about? Atsumu hesitated whether he should really utter his worry. He didn't want to let the mood tip. Most of all, he didn't want things to get weird between them again. But wasn't that exactly why he should definitely bring it up? What is this between us, Omi? Atsumu shivered slightly. He swallowed, afraid that this question would involve something that would hurt them both. What does this feel like to you, 𝒖𝒔𝒄? Atsumu turned to him, resting his arms on his chest now, and looked deeply into 𝒂𝒂𝒄's eyes. He met the lead singer's serious face, while the blonde himself frowned. Who assures me that you don't want to spend your time with the next best stars? That I will be too boring for you again? You were never too boring for me, Atsumu. What are you talking about? Yet you've dated other celebrities. That's not true. It was all business. Do you believe the press more than me? Atsumu looked skeptically into 𝒂𝒂𝒄's eyes, which looked at him pleadingly. The two of them had been at this point before. The only one I want to spend my time with is you. Ever since we met, I haven't spent my nights with anyone else. Always with you, 𝒖𝒔𝒄. It has always been you. Kayumi whispered against Atsumu's lips, pressing their foreheads together. That's why it hurt so much when I thought there was something going on between you and Kagami. You've never dated anyone else? Never, 𝒖𝒄. You've taken over my mind as well as my heart. Omi. Atsumu blushed and 𝒂𝒂𝒄 had to smile at the sight. It was true. Atsumu had always been the only one for 𝒂𝒂𝒄. There was nothing unusual about the press fighting over him, about everyone wanting to publish a big story about the infamous 𝒂𝒂𝒄 Kayumi. Whether it was true or not, they didn't care, as long as their headlines brought them success. It sucked. 𝒂𝒂𝒄 had his reasons for not wanting to return to the big stage with lethargy for so long when Kagami broke up with him. You are the one I want. It will always be only you. 𝒂𝒂𝒄 cupped Atsumu's face and sank deep into his gaze. Atsumu's eyes glazed over. The blonde nodded. Then let's give it a try. Because, fuck Omi, I can't imagine my life without you. Don't do it, 𝒖𝒄, please. I want you to be mine. Atsumu bit his lip, grinned, nodded. Well, I guess I'm yours then. And 𝒂𝒂𝒄 grinned broadly all over his face, too. He was about to kiss Atsumu again when the door to his room slammed open and 𝒖𝒂𝒄 rushed in. Hey loverbirds, have you already? Oh my god, are you naked? Carver, fuck off. Jeez, you are naked. Get out. But to SakuAtsu's misfortune, Iwaizumi, Akashi and Bakuto now entered SakuSa's room as well and stared at the couple on the couch. Atsumu buried his head in Kayumi's chest and just wanted to sink into the ground. He was incredibly uncomfortable with the situation. Oh god. This can't be true. Looks like everything's good between you guys again, huh? Ikoa leaned his shoulder against the door frame and crossed his arms. He threw a smug grin at the two of them. Kava, I love you, but that's nothing we should talk about right now. Atsumu's voice was muffled as he still buried his face in Kayumi's chest. Ikoa just chuckled. What are you doing here? Giving you good news. Huh? There's a huge shitstorm coming down on Kagami right now. What? After your speech tonight to Atsumu, our fans realized that you two were always meant to be together, that Kagami forced herself between you. The video of you at the song contest when Atsumu performed for you, 𝒑𝒍𝒂𝒄, it's blowing up. Everyone is sharing and commenting that what you have is special. Atsumu lifted his head and looked SakuSa in the eyes. Both were at least equally stunned. Kagami's fame is getting more and more damaged. What she got herself into is definitely falling back on her now. Her fanbase is shrinking by the second, while yours is growing. This bitch doesn't deserve anything else. Everyone chuckled lightly at Ikoa's grumpiness. The fans can't get enough of Gemini and lethargy, they want more. Atsumu's eyes widened for a split second before he fixed his gaze with SakuSa again. He stroked the blonde's hair, then spoke while gazing into his eyes full of love. Then we'll give them what they want. Ha. The four intruders smirked. Let Kenma and Kiru know that lethargy and Gemini will perform together. That we'll write a song together. Oomi. That Gemini will go on tour with us. Atsumu looked at him dumbfounded and blushed. SakuSa just gave him a pleading look back. He finally had him back. He couldn't just let Atsumu go again. Atsumu sighed, nervously fiddling with his fingertips on Kayumi's skin, lowering his gaze and muttering. I'll have to talk to Samu first. Oh. I think Osamu won't have a problem with that. Atsumu's gaze snapped to Akashi, who just threw him a mischievous grin back. The two of them still had so much sanity and had closed their door, but damn. The walls are thin, or Rin and Osamu just too loud? Ikoa and Akashi giggled while Atsumu's face turned red. Oh my god. You know Atsumu, I'd say never fuck the company but well. Akashi just grinned slyly as he looked at Bakuto and then disappeared from SakuSa's room. Atsumu blushed even more. Choose wisely, Atsumu. After all, going on a tour together would also mean we can hang out more often, okay? Ikoa threw him an air kiss and disappeared as well. It's nice to finally see you two so happy. SakuSa and Atsumu returned Iwaizumi's big grin. Man, this band was really like a little family. Atsumu could understand more and more why they stuck together so well. Hey Bo. Bakuto turned around once more before disappearing too. He gave SakuSa an expectant look. If Gemini ever decided to do this. SakuSa looked at Atsumu with a mischievous grin out of the corner of his eye. Do you think we could sign them up then? Atsumu's eyes widened, but Bakuto just chuckled and turned back around. He spoke as he left, pulling the door shut behind him after saying the following words. Is that even a question anymore? A few months passed and Gemini and lethargy were actually on tour together. While Kagami decided to take an indefinite break due to her slump, both Gemini and lethargy were getting bigger and bigger. The concert today was Gemini's first properly big performance. They were used to playing to maybe a few hundred people, if not less, in a small bar, but today, 500k people were waiting to listen to the duet between the two bands and the crowd went crazy for it. Nervous? Yeah, pretty much, honestly. Oh, you don't have to be, believe me. You're not even on stage, Kava. You see, and that's the problem. And what would you contribute then? Looking good, of course. Ikoa's easygoing manner lightened the mood and actually brought the twins down a bit. Just focus on me, okay? Atsumu looked deep into his boyfriend's eyes and nodded. SakuSa smiled, gave him a chaste kiss, and disappeared onto the stage with his band members when they heard Bakuto announce them. Atsumu and Osamu looked at each other, hugging before it was time for them to take the stage as well. Are you okay? Yeah, what about you? I couldn't be fucking better. They broke away from each other and grinned. We're gonna kick some ass, okay? Of course we will. They smiled, locked hands, and then walked on stage together as Bakuto announced them as well. The crowd went wild. Atsumu and Osamu were visibly overwhelmed, unable to believe how many people wanted to listen to them. SakuAtsu and Suna giggled lightly. Seeing the twins so overwhelmed and silent was a rare thing indeed. Osamu placed himself next to Suna while Atsumu walked forward to Kayumi, who was already holding out a hand to him, just waiting for the blonde to grab it. And of course he did so immediately. They looked deep into each other's eyes. They really couldn't have looked at each other more in love. SakuAtsu beamed, had to pull himself together not to kiss Atsumu silly here and now. He turned to his fans and spoke into the microphone in his free hand. Haikyuu and I have been working on this song to perfection for the past few weeks. I love it and I hope you like it at least as much. He put the microphone back in the stand and turned to Atsumu, who was now standing next to SakuAtsu at his stand microphone and looking at him. SakuAtsu whispered a silent love you which made Atsumu glow and blush. He knew that with Kayumi by his side, nothing could go wrong and he couldn't wait to perform this song.
Baby, this love, I'll never let it die. Can't be touched by no one. I like to see him try. I'm a madman for your touch, girl, I've lost control. I'm gonna make this last forever, don't tell me it's impossible. Cause I love you for infinity. I love you for infinity. Cause I love you for infinity.
SakuAtsu released his microphone and moved to Atsumu, who did the same and came to meet him. The two grinned at each other, so full of love that everyone in the concert hall could feel it. SakuAtsu brought his palm down on Atsumu's, grabbed his hand and spun him around, slowly starting to slow dance with him to the beat.
You know it aches for yours, and you've been filling this hole since you were born. Oh, 'cause you're the reason I believe in fate. You're my paradise, and I'll do anything to be your love. I'll be a sacrifice, 'cause I love you for infinity. I love you for infinity. 'Cause I love you for infinity. I love you for infinity.
SakuAtsu wrapped his arms around Atsumu's waist from behind, resting his head on the latter's shoulder, while Atsumu leaned back, closed his eyes, and they swayed mindlessly to the beat. It was as if there was only the two of them, as if they were singing solely to each other, as if they were trying to express to each other how great their love was.
Meet me at the bottom of the ocean, where the time is frozen, where all the universe is open. Love isn't random, we are chosen, and we could wear the same crown. Keep slowing your heart down. We are the gods now. 'Cause I love you for infinity. I love you for infinity. 'Cause I love you for infinity. I love you for infinity.
Their lips met in a kiss that couldn't have carried more emotions. It was as if all that mattered was SakuAtsu and Atsumu, as if there weren't 500,000 people listening to them, as if they were dedicating the song solely to each other. Because that's how it was. SakuAtsu cupped Atsumu's face, deepening their kiss, sinking into everything the blonde was giving him. They were in a trance. All that mattered was their love only. Atsumu was perfect and Kyumi knew he would never let him go again. When the song ended and the crowd cheered, literally going crazy, the two broke away from the kiss and looked into each other's eyes in love. Their lips were still slightly touching, their noses nudged together. They both flashed a smile, and shit. SakuAtsu's mind went completely blank at the view that Atsumu was giving him at that moment. He was flushed, heat spreading through his cheeks, and it was clear to SakuAtsu how much Atsumu loved him too. That whatever was between them would last forever. And it did. Their love was endless, growing more and more with each passing day. So it happened that 𝒑𝒍𝒂𝒄 and Gemini cooperated even more, that both bands got increasingly famous and that both bands actually always had their concerts in the same cities at the same time. Because just as Atsumu couldn't be without SakuAtsu, Osamu couldn't be without Suna. Gemini quickly learned how to deal with all the commotion about them, and they quickly learned not to give a shit about what other people said about them, because all that mattered was that they had each other, that they had their friends. Maybe Atsumu had to smirk slightly when, 2 years after he got together with SakuAtsu, the headline popped up on his phone that Kyumi and Kagami were supposed to be seen together a few days ago. Because maybe he knew full well that the press had just made something up again. It's also possible that this was Kagami's doing though. Yes, maybe Atsumu was really sure with SakuAtsu, knew that he could trust him absolutely. Because, maybe Atsumu and SakuAtsu had married secretly at that very time. Their love was real, it was strong, and it would stay that way forever. You know. For infinity. I didn't even have a plot for this story and yet I had so much fun writing this. Thank you to everyone who took the time to read this. I love you guys, you are the best. For all of you who wanted to listen to the songs in a playlist. There you go. There are a few more songs in there, the first 7 are the ones from the story.